Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast. It's been a hot minute, I won't lie. I was trying to figure out something to do with the camera. I filmed two videos before the Bears, um, and both of the files got corrupted. So we're gonna try and work out a camera a little bit later, but for now, a lot has happened between the Chargers and now, so we got a lot to talk about. So, without further ado, let's get this one started. Let's go. All right, so today is Sunday, December 14th. This is an important day in terms of news regarding tomorrow's game against the Dolphins. Um, but let's talk about the Steelers since the Chargers game. So, it was a terrible loss against the Chargers. Obviously, Rodgers was out for the Bears game. We lost by three. Then the Bills game was terrible. Absolute one of the worst games I've ever watched as a Steelers fan. And then we had last week against the Ravens, and it was a really huge win in terms of the division. But yeah, overall, really, really big win. And yeah, so today the Ravens played the Bengals, and they ended up winning, which is what the Ravens needed. So that makes tomorrow's game even more important. Um, as now the Ravens are 7-7. The Steelers are 7-6. So if we can get to 8-6, we'll have a one-game lead over them. But yeah, let's talk about the game preview. Injuries for the Dolphins. There's not too much. Achan had a rib injury going into the week, but it looks like he's expected to play, so he's going to be good to play. And on the Steelers side of the ball, we it was very important that Derek Harmon could play this week because I mean we've just been terrible at defending the run. So if the games in which Derek Harmon was and the games where Derek Harmon was playing, we only averaged like 100 rushing yards allowed a game, and without him, which has been a pretty decent amount, like 3 to 4 games, we've almost given up 200 yards on the ground a game. So, I mean, obviously the Dolphins are have won, I think, four straight. So, um, it'll be very important for them to get their ground game going, uh, especially in the cold. I mean, we know historically how Tua is in the cold, and it's going to be a very, very cold one in the Berg. So, definitely this game will probably be one in the trenches for sure. So it's good to see Derek Harmon back. So our entire D line is pretty healthy for the most part, aside from TJ Watt. Another, big news because he was doing some dry needling uh, at the medical facility, and something happened with his lung, and he had to be hospitalized. So it sucks that he's out because historically we've been bad in games that he doesn't play. But um, I mean, it's important that he's healthy and that he's safe. But it's also important that our edge rushers are. We have pretty good depth in our edge rusher position. I trust Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer to step up when TJ's down. So that's very important. But yeah, other than that, um, James Pierre isn't going to be playing, which sucks because he's been so dang good for us. He got that pick against Lamar last week. So he's going to be a no-go. But that does mean Asante Samuel Jr. will be starting his first time as a Steeler. Um, but then I was also thinking, if he goes down, who do we have? Because, we don't have Darius Slay anymore, but I mean, we could always just bring Jalen Ramsey down, have him play slot, and move Brandon Eccles to outside, which he has been great at. Brandon Eccles has been one of the best Steelers cornerbacks this year for sure. Picked him up in free agency, and honestly, our entire secondary has been pretty locked down. Joey Porter Jr., James Pierre, Brandon Eccles, those guys have been great. I mean, when stuff wasn't working, we were playing Jalen Ramsey and Darius Slay at corner. So once Terrell Austin made that switch, I think that changed the secondary drastically. But in terms of safety, Kyle Duggar, who is dealing with a hand injury last week, we're going to get him back, which is super important because, I was tired of seeing Chuck Clark out there last week against the Ravens. So it's good that Duggar's back for sure because he's a really big impact player. But in terms of our offense, Broderick once again a no-go. So we'll have Andrus Pete at left tackle. But I thought he held up pretty well last week, and then Dylan Cook got in the game, and I thought he held up great as well. But yeah, so I think we got to get the ground game going. We didn't have much to show for last week, but I mean, this game we'll be running the ball a lot more just because of the weather. Um, and a crucial player who went out last week during the Ravens game with a concussion, Darnell Washington. He just got cleared to play for tomorrow, so that'll be great that he'll be back. He helps out so much in the run game and over the middle of the field passing game as well. But yeah, let's talk about our wide receivers. So obviously we got Adam Thielen few weeks ago, and then we elevated MVS last week to play. So, in my opinion, uh, I thought those guys, obviously, both of them combined had a catch for 4 yards. Um, but I mean, in terms of like scheme, I mean, the Ravens, I feel like it helped that they didn't know what was coming. So they weren't really doubling DK as much, which allowed him to pop off that game for like 150 yards. Um, but I think having those bigger bodies, um, it kind of is like, I mean, it looked good to me, especially in size perspective, seeing Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson switching over to NVS and Thielen. Um, But I definitely think those guys get involved a lot more this week, especially Thielen, because Thielen, he was open a lot last week on film, but Rodgers just struggled to get the ball to him. A lot of it was over the middle of the field. But that's also another positive that came from last week is we threw the ball over the middle of the field a lot more than we have. And, with all of our guys on offense, yards after catches. What those guys are best at. And, I think we need to see a good game from Jalen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell. But I could also see Caleb Johnson on the field just because we drafted him to be that first down running back, and he's a bigger body. He knows how to play in the cold coming from Iowa. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him out on the field. But I think the key to this matchup is making Tua turn the ball over. Um, Try and get an interception off of him in obvious passing situations. I think another key is you got to defend the run. If you can't defend the run, hypothetically, you literally don't win this game. Because, you know, we've seen these teams just run all over us like the Bills did in that one game, which was a cold game. Um, But obviously, like I said, Derek Harmon was the determining factor of this game. So it's good to see that he's playing because it's so crucial that he'll be there. And then that allows us to play Keanu Benton and YA Black in position. And quite frankly, YA Black's been really good, but it's just when he's out on the field for long periods of time, he gets tired. I mean, he's 330 pounds, so I mean, I don't blame him, but you got to keep uh, new bodies on the field at all times. So Derek Harmon coming back helps out a lot. In terms of Rodgers, I think he needs to protect the football, don't take a lot of sacks, and get the ball up fast over the middle of the field. So I'm hoping to not see a lot of Jonnu Smith because when Darno went down and Jonnu Smith started taking his reps, I saw nothing good. I mean, I know the Steelers got this guy to be their kind of yak threat, but he has not lived up to any of that hype. I mean, he's not a good blocker, he's not a good route runner, and quite frankly, he's just not who this, or I guess Arthur Smith thought he would be back when he coached him in Tennessee. So I think Pat Fryermuth should be out snapping Jonnu. I think Darnell should be out snapping Jonnu. But I think Arthur Smith and his love for these tight ends and his love for Jonnu, I don't get it, quite frankly. In terms of our next few games we got ahead of us, we got the Lions next week. We got the Browns after that, and then the Ravens to close out the season. So hypothetically, if we win this game and we win one of the two games against either, or one of the three games against the Lions, the Browns, or the Ravens, which we should win against the Browns, I think that we will win the division. And also in terms of the Ravens schedule, they play the Patriots next week on Sunday Night Football, so it's kind of a must-win game for the Ravens. And also, the Patriots losing to Buffalo today, the Patriots are going to want to win the division over Buffalo, so they're going to treat that as also probably a must-win game. I guess we could talk a little bit about Mike Tomlin and what has happened since I've recorded my last episode before the Chargers game. But it's crazy to say the least. Like before that Chargers game, if you told me that there was people saying fire Mike Tomlin in Acrisure Stadium, I would have called you crazy. But I mean, I think I've never been a Tomlin fan. Um, I think that he's always been part of the problem why we haven't won a playoff game in a decade. People are finally starting to realize that he's not a great coach. He's a great coach when it comes to, talking up the media, talking up the players, getting players to like him, but he's not a good coach when it comes to big games. And I think people are just starting to realize that. And, it sucks, but I also think it could be a blessing in disguise because if we don't win a playoff game, which chances are we probably won't, considering our past, I think that you have an obvious decision to make. And I don't think that Art Rooney is ever going to fire Tomlin. I don't think we ever will fire a coach. If we do, I would be very surprised. But with the people saying fire Tomlin, I think in reality, it's more of a trade Tomlin because if you look at a team like the Giants, who just lost today, or the Titans, who are fighting for the number one overall pick, those are two teams that need a coach desperately. And those are two teams that are drafting within the top five. So when you look at that, I'm thinking that if we trade Tomlin to one of those teams who are desperate for wins, I mean, I think if you ask any Giants fan or any Titans fan if they would be excited for Mike Tomlin, of course they will, because Mike Tomlin, he knows how to win games. Like, I'm not doubting the fact that he doesn't know how to win games. I'm doubting the fact that he doesn't know how to win playoff games when it matters most. Um, so if you think about it, if we trade Tomlin for a first round pick and like a second round, like what Sean Payton did when he went to the Broncos, I mean, I think that would work out perfectly. I don't think any Steelers fan is saying no to trading Tomlin for that, especially when the draft's in Pittsburgh next year. I mean, I think that would be perfect because, you know, you'll be trading Tomlin, probably getting 2027 round draft picks. So the Titans fan would be willing to give up their next draft pick because obviously Tomlin will be drafting within the top five, picking a player that he would like. Um, but I think he'll probably go to the Giants just because, you've got Jackson Dart, you've got Cam Scatterbo, you've got two young edge rushers, Brian Burns, Abdul Carter. So I think that he'll have pieces to work with, young pieces to work with. Um, but it's a no trade clause on Tomlin's contract, meaning that he'll have to agree to be traded. And we actually had a report coming from Deanna Rossini talking about how there's a coach who's been in the league for a long time who is looking for a new or is looking for a change. And besides John Harbaugh in the AFC or Andy Reid, I think it's Tomlin. And you know, as you've seen on James Harrison's podcast, I don't know if you guys have seen that, but he publicly came out and said, "I've never viewed Tomlin as a great coach," which is crazy to say, but sadly, he's speaking truth. And he said that he's he said that he's never really developed somebody to be the best version of themselves. And I mean, I think that speaks for a lot of players that we've seen over these past few years, drafting Kenny Pickett, that was a whiff. Um, but yeah, I think that's all I have for you guys today. We're gonna start doing this more and more often. Hopefully I can get that camera. But if not, I'll continue to film these because they're important as the season goes on, maybe into the postseason. We're getting close to January, but um, hopefully I see you guys next week or after tomorrow for a game preview or game recap of the Dolphins game. Um, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Here we go, Steelers.